All right. Welcome into this edition of the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast. Corey Moen, Evan Bernd. Evan, how are we doing?
We are doing well.
Okay. I apologize. I haven't played the intro music in a while, so if it was a little loud, that's my bad. So let's get right into it. Milwaukee had 2 games last week. The play-in tournament, obviously, in full swing.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and talk about the first game. Evan, the Bucks played the New York Knicks last week. 146 to 122. Just an absolute annihilation. And again, it was one of those games where if you close your eyes, you go, okay, who went off for the Knicks? And if you were to guess RJ Barrett, Julius Randle, and Jalen Brunson, you would be correct. And who went off for Milwaukee? Once again, close your eyes. There was Giannis and Dame. Actually, and Malik Beasley, too. He had 18, and Campaign had 12. But, Julius Randle put together a really good game for the Knicks. He had 41, RJ Barrett 23, Jalen Brunson 24. And Milwaukee was pretty efficient shooting from the field, 60%. And they were pretty efficient shooting from 3, 23 of 38.
See, that's something to note because they didn't take 50 shots and made 23. They only missed 50. I think that was one of their best 3-point games this year. And I think the 23 is a season high for the NBA, if I'm not mistaken. Very efficient, finally.
And I heard Kenny Smith talk about like what's wrong with the Knicks. Like, why was Milwaukee able to put it on them like so easily? And he had a point that I feel like a lot of people can agree with, where night in, night out, the Knicks never have the best player on the floor. And the more I thought about it, I'm like, he's right. They don't. Like when the Knicks go up against Eastern Conference contenders, and we've talked about this before, they have a lot of good B guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, Julius Randle, B guy. Jalen Brunson, B guy. RJ Barrett, B guy. They just don't have an A. And the only time it worked were the B guys, like when a playoff series was last year where they took care of Cleveland in 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, that's why they're always going to they're going to get to the playoffs, get to the second round, maybe. But that's their ceiling.
It's like the 76ers, but with less players, with the same outcome.
And the 76ers, and that's kind of a weird situation too, because people expect the 76ers to be contenders every single year, and they are, but, it's just they just had like at least – they've always had that one piece that just didn't fit in the puzzle, where you go, okay, Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, boom, 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 like good players. But then the last year, you had Ben Simmons, he didn't show up in the playoffs at all, and then you had James Harden, who only showed up for 1 game in the playoffs. So they have a good team. It's just, and again, there's been stretches where Joel Embiid hasn't played well in the playoffs either. So that's why Philly just hasn't gotten to an Eastern Conference Finals while Joel Embiid's been there. They just haven't. They just haven't had a good enough team to, or they just don't have. I just don't know if they have had enough pieces to get them to that third round NBA Finals.
Yeah, I would say the big thing with the Knicks game. First of all, I didn't realize Julius Randle had 41 points until after the game. You just kind of watch the game, but you're not really focusing on the Knicks because the Bucks are scoring way more points. But I know Julius Randle, the last game that they played against the Knicks, he shot horribly. I think he was like 9 for like 20. It was something, or 4 of something really bad. But then he was like 6 for 6, and then like 9 of 9 or 8 of 9 just wasn't missing. But he actually had a decent game. But again, this was just one of those games where you score 122 points, but you gave up almost 150 points because everyone, I felt like, for the Bucks was hitting their shots. And I think this was one of the better again, I mentioned earlier, 3-point games, but super efficient. Guys who were shooting were not missing multiple times. Repetitively, like shooting 1 of 6, 2 of 8 kind of thing. But yeah, overall good game. Giannis almost triple-double again. I love when he can get the rebounds, or not get the rebounds, but get the assists somehow. But, well, it is what it is. But yeah, overall good game. Again, this is the first Eastern Conference. Sorry, I got playoffs in my head. This is the in-season tournament. So, again, they needed this win to move on. But overall, looked pretty good to me. AJ Green, 3 for 4 from 3. Kind of came in for a couple minutes, did what he needed to do, and then hopped out. I would say overall, a very consistent game. You got your big 3. Chris and Malik Beasley, you can kind of iffy them out or not. But overall, I think a really good game. Just defensive-wise for Julius Randle, he just could not miss. Can't do anything about that.
No, and it's one of those things where I guess if I had to take one player from the Knicks going off, I'm glad it was Julius Randle, because the last few times I feel like it's been Jalen Brunson.
Yep.
And Jalen Brunson still had a solid game. He had 24 points. But, you know, Jalen Brunson, it felt like, would have his highest scoring outputs against Milwaukee. Like, they just had no answer for him.
Yeah, his 0 for 5 on 3 could be a whole lot different if that was a 3 for 5 and he was feeling himself and decided to shoot more. But yeah, I'm glad it was Julius Randle, because you throw Jalen Brunson, that's a 3-point thing that I don't really want to notice or have to worry about. But yeah, it was good to have Julius Randle, and that just kind of gets pushed to the side because the Bucks still won by 24.
Does the 122, does that still kind of concern you a little bit? Like a little too high scoring? Or is
Yes. Oh, yeah, very. Because it was pretty close for a while, and then all of a sudden the Bucks just kind of blew up in the second half. Well, they had a really good – the whole game, they had really high-scoring quarters, but the first half, they scored 37 and 38, but then they gave up 35 and 37. So they're only up by like 3 or 4. But, yeah, the second half, the Knicks totally fell apart, only scoring 60 points, I think that is, 20, 40, no, 50 points. Yeah, 50 points in the second half to the Bucks. Again, 37, 34, fourth quarter. So overall consistency, but yeah, with the Knicks kind of falling off in the second half, still 122, though, is pretty high. And it's something where I just got to get used to and just kind of face the fact that it's probably going to be 115 to 125-ish per game. But as long as they can score more to win, I'm fine with it, because we're not going to get the defense like borderline 100 points really as much as we had in the past with Drew.
Yeah, and I think we brought this up before, where I don't know if the problems are necessarily fixable, because you're subtracting offense for they subtracted the defense in Drew for more offense in Dame. And I think someone had a stat where, the 3 starters have been defending pretty well, but it feels like once the starters go off the floor, it feels like the bench kind of allows most of those points.
Yes.
Where it's Bobby, it's Pat, it's Cameron Payne, which would make sense, because really out of those 3, I would say Pat is probably the best defender. And again, once those guys are off the floor, Milwaukee doesn't really have another big. So that's probably why the offensive rebounding numbers look so high, because I've said it before, Bobby Portis is not a center.
No.
And he can rebound, don't get me wrong, but but it's not, but it shouldn't just be up to Bobby to just grab rebounds. It should be a whole team effort. And it feels like Milwaukee coming off the bench has a shorter Milwaukee's bench is shorter. So of course they're going to be prone to giving up offensive rebounds.
Yeah. With Bob, looking at like your bench, I'm obviously taking out Robin Lopez from the mix because he doesn't get minutes to begin with. Bobby is your tallest guy, and then the next one is Marjan, but he's not a forward, he's a guard. So you really only have Bobby coming off. So there are some lineups, I will admit, where I'm kind of wondering, why are all 5 of those guys together? I feel like there should somehow be a starter in the mix at some point, but sometimes you have a whole bench rotation where you have Bobby Campaign, Marjan, maybe Brooke and Beasley. Obviously, those are two of our starters, but not one of like our main three guys. And sometimes it doesn't work where you kind of have Giannis going off. I've noticed this. My brother's noticed this. But you have Giannis going off, like doing super well, and then all of a sudden they take him out and they give up all the points that Giannis just scored. They kind of just give it right back up, and then they bring Giannis back out, and then he does what he needs to do again. I just feel like sometimes, obviously, Giannis is going to need a break, can't play the whole game. But sometimes I feel like he can play more, but Coach Griffin takes him out to kind of keep a minute restriction to then play him all together with the starters again. I don't know if that's like something a lot of people notice, but I just feel like he's always taken out at the wrong time. And I feel like that does stuff with the bench too, having to kind of hold that 10-point lead that Giannis just got for them, and then it just dwindles away because they can't guard some of these guys as efficient as Giannis can.
Yeah, and look, the last two coaches have really tried to protect Giannis, not play him too many minutes, because he plays so hard that I don't think they know when to take him out.
Yeah.
What's should he be kept at a minutes restriction? Or should he be playing 40+ minutes? It's such a tough thing, and we're not in that whole situation. So it's really kind of like, if it were up to me, I'd probably play Giannis 40 minutes like once in a while. Like, I don't know what he's averaging in terms of minutes so far.
See if I can find that.
Like, I feel like out of the five, like, I feel like the highest minute getters, I feel like would be Giannis and Lillard.
He's averaging, if I round the 0.6 up to the highest, he would average about 35 a game this year. Yeah, he played 33 in the Knicks game.
Okay.
Most of their starters played. Everyone played 33. Chris played 26. Beasley played 32. But yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like he could play 40, but you don't want to push it every game. But some games where there's situations where like maybe he could probably play a few more minutes, especially in earlier leads that you get that you slowly kind of give up, or late in the game where if they're making a push in the third quarter into the fourth quarter, or somewhat into the fourth quarter, I feel like there's ways where you can kind of like give him a few more minutes, because I know he'll want to play it, and he will.
Yeah, and that's been a critique of Adrian Griffin this year, especially from the players, specifically Damian Lillard and Giannis, where
they don't play together.
What?
It seems like they never play with each other.
Yeah, and I think there was a critique this year, especially from Damian Lillard, where Damian maybe wanted to play more minutes, and Adrian Griffin was like, yeah, so I tried playing him all in the fourth quarter or wherever it was, all in the first half, or it was some story where, Adrian Griffin early in the season maybe wanted to preserve Damian Lillard, so Dame probably didn't like that, so then he switched. So after those two talks, Dame finished the first half or something. Giannis and Adrian Griffin, I know, got into it like a couple weeks ago about Adrian Griffin took him out. Giannis didn't like it. So, I mean, like that is kind of it is kind of a situation where Adrian Griffin's maybe taking him out when he's like hot. But I don't know. Again, this is just a new coach, first year coach, just trying to figure it out. And someone brought this up where, Adrian Griffin has never been in this situation before, where his first head coaching job is a title contending team. So there's just a lot of things that there's a lot of things he's just trying to figure out.
Yeah, and it's when you come into the league and then all of a sudden you get Damian Lillard and you're like the favorite to win the title. I get that. It's just kind of, it's something that we're just not used to. It's been a while, obviously, since Bud Budenholzer was this coach, again, back in like 2018, I believe. So it's had him for a few years. Obviously, you get used to it, but they just kind of started off hot. He's coached before. He was a starting coach, a head coach. But yeah, one of those things that's a little different, but I think overall this game was a good statement one. Obviously, we're going to get into the Pacers game next, but overall, I think everyone played well. Again, good efficient game shooting wise, especially from Lillard and Beasley from three. But yeah, it's just another game where there's no defense played. But when you can turn the defense into offense, it kind of helps.
So we'll get right into that Pacers game. Milwaukee, of course, blowing a 12-point lead. I believe it was in the fourth quarter when they blew that 12-point.
Yeah, late in the game.
Late in the game.
They just stopped playing. Like it was, I don't know. I kind of had, they were down a little bit. Then I know they came back and then they got a little lead and then it was gone. But I was kind of half watching just because I was frustrated. Then I'm like, oh, they're kind of coming back. Let me focus more. And then it was like I just blinked and it was gone. There's the Pacers. Don't get me wrong. I like the Pacers. They're a good upcoming team. They're kind of like the Thunder of the East. You know, you got your star player and you got your supporting guys who click well together. But to consistently lose to teams where the big three is Tyrese, Miles Turner, and Buddy Hield, and we're like losing to these teams when we have Giannis, Lillard, like our starting five is better than, I don't know. I don't want to crap talk the Pacers because they won, but it's annoying that we could just never beat the Pacers. We used to crush them every time, and then as of recently, we've been going at it more with them, and this doesn't make any sense. TJ McConnell, I don't like you. You're a Bucks killer. Buddy Hield is another Bucks. There's a lot of Bucks killers on the Pacers. Tyrese, super good, underrated guy who's not getting the respect he deserves. Again, a Wisconsin guy too, so I can't hate on him. But God, they wanted it more. I remember there was a saying of Tyrese coming out where it's like this. He wants the accolade of the in-season tournament, which is so fair. Because again, beat the Celtics, coming in, you beat the Bucks, you just beat the top. We'll throw in the Magic, but the top two teams in the East, just wipe the floor with them. They want it more. If they want the in-season tournament and they're going to treat it like the NBA Finals, so be it. But just kind of annoying.
Yeah, and before we really dive into the game, what did you think of the crossover between TNT and ESPN?
Oh my God, they talk about. I had to mute it. I had to turn off the cast, and because it wasn't on Bally Sports, like I couldn't listen to Marcus Johnson stuff because they weren't in Las Vegas. That took me a long time to realize that they weren't there because I forgot it was in Las Vegas. But I had to mute it and had to hope that I could kind of tell what a foul was called because I couldn't listen to it anymore. I'm not a big Doris Burke fan. I don't really like her. I don't know. Her and Reggie Miller are just not my favorite commentators. And when they're the two primary people commentating this game, I had to mute it. I couldn't do it anymore. Could not do it.
I don't know what they were thinking having Reggie Miller call a Pacers game, being like a former Pacers legend. But
yeah,
there had to be a rule. There had to have been a rule against that. It took me a solid minute to be like, because I didn't really know how that whole in-season tournament thing was going to work. I didn't know TNT and ESPN were going to be crossing over like that.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Like the best moments were like the pregame shows, obviously, like with Stephen A. and Charles and Shaq, when they kind of with those interactions, those are pretty funny. But again, I expected it to be like a regular ESPN broadcast with like Doc Rivers and Doris Burke, but instead we got Doris Burke and we got Reggie Miller with Mike Breen. So I don't like. I guess it wasn't my favorite cup of tea, like having a TNT broadcast out with ESPN because me personally, I just don't think TNT has the best announcers. That's just me. Like Reggie Miller, I feel like is a he's an acquired taste. I feel like there's some people who like him and some people don't like him. But, there was a time where I thought, like, why not TNT just host the finals? Because I probably didn't like Jeff Van Gundy or Mark Jackson. Now it's like, oh yeah, no, ESPN needs to ESPN needs to keep the rights for this because, like, I like Mike Breen. He was probably the only.
Yeah, he's the only one I would listen to. But when you add the other two, and he's not going to do as much as the other two will. But yeah, I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah. So, like I said, it sucked. And Tyrese Halliburton, what makes it frustrating, he's got that weird jump shot that it seemingly always goes in.
It's like all arm. It's lanky.
And not to mention the fact there was some controversy on Halliburton's Dagger 3 where they thought he carried, which it looked like a travel. It looked like a carry, but they didn't call it. Here's the thing. First of all, and at that point in the game, they're not going to make that call.
No.
Okay. Everybody carries. Okay?
Yeah, they don't even call carry anymore unless they don't call a carry anymore unless it's so blatantly obvious. But yeah, everyone does it.
Everyone does it. So I'm not. So I get it. People want to, slow-mo the video and all this other stuff, and I'm just like,
that's too much. Yeah.
Dude, they're not making that call at this point in the game. I'm not sitting there, oh my God, the Bucks were robbed. No. Okay. Like, I'm sure on a lot of game winners, there's been a lot of illegal moves that players got away with it. So I'm not going to sit here and just be like, oh my God, we got robbed. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. Okay. Because at the end of the day, like, it was a wide open 3 too.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. So I'm not gonna sit here and just. And also, even if it was like Milwaukee shouldn't have had to rely on that to win the game because at the end of the day they blew the lead. Okay, they let Miles Turner go off against them. They're the ones who allowed 15 offensive rebounds. They're the ones who allowed 72 paint points. They allowed Indiana to shoot 49% from the field. So I'm not going to sit here and just be like, we were robbed or, the refs cheated us, the NBA's rigged. I'm not doing that. Okay. We didn't play well down the stretch and we lost the game. We deserve to lose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was a very Giannis game. Again, you have this. I think personally, this was Chris's best game of the season, which kind of sucks. Again, he finally got to the 20 points, 4 for 5 on 3. 7 rebounds, 4 assists, a couple steals. It's like he was playing really well. But then you have Malik Beasley, 7 points. Bobby, 4 points. Marjan, 5. 8, or no, I'm not going to count AJ. Campaign, 4. It's like you got super heavy on Lillard, Brook, Giannis, and Middleton. Then everyone else just disappears. Or that also doesn't help when you're relying on one more starter to kind of do well. But it's just not a good scoring game from the bench at all. They disappeared.
Yeah, you're right. And, Milwaukee, in a game like that, you need everyone. You need everyone to step up. And sometimes with the bench, it's been hit or miss. Now, look, Pat didn't play, which I feel as though had a bit of an impact because Cameron Payne, Bobby Portis, it's hit or miss whether those guys can score, and they're not consistent enough scoring. Marjan again, it's a second year. He's getting his sea legs under him. So I'm not going to harp on him too much, but
they just gave up.
Yeah.
There was a lot of sloppy plays at the end of the game where it's like I felt like it's kind of going to be related to the Bobby thing, but there's just plays where it was questionable of, okay, what are we doing? Especially on defense with the lack of boxing out, which they have been doing quite often recently. in a lot of these games. But it was like they just stopped playing, careless plays, not paying attention, turnovers late in the game where it just kind of led to a downfall in the last 2 minutes or so. But yeah, just not a fun way to go out. Again, you can win fair and the Bucks lost fair and square, obviously, but there are just a lot of things that happen where it's like that can't happen regularly because you're not going to win games if you're not paying attention late in the game. But it wasn't a fart off battle. Just a sloppy game overall.
And maybe this wouldn't have happened if Damian Lillard didn't touch the trophy before the game.
He jinxed it.
He did jinx it. Someone literally told him it's like don't touch it, it's bad luck. And he touched it, and we lost. So
not used to being around trophies.
You know what? If that's what we can expect, better not touch the finals trophy. If we ever get to the finals. So all right, time to get into the meat and potatoes. The meat and potatoes version of this podcast. So after the game against the Pacers, Bobby Portis called out Adrian Griffin. What did they say? What was said in that, or just saying he got called out?
I think it was just I was reading the article again. I kind of skimmed it. I didn't want to think about it. I was like, oh great, here we go. I don't think it said anything, but I know. Let me go back up to the part. It was talking about called him out, blah blah blah, and then they don't have an exact quote, but it was stated that it says Portis was upset about the lack of organization down the stretch, being outscored 15-7 in the last 240, about that idea. And that said, Portis said that while the team has to execute better, the coaching staff has to put them in a position to succeed. And a lot of it was going because of a late play with Chris bringing the ball up and not Lillard. And then it led to Chris scrambling, making a bad pass and turning it over for a fast break. Which they missed, but put back, scored it, which put him up 5. I think it was really frustrating just about the late game. But yeah, no direct quote from Bobby, just the one from Giannis.
Okay, well, first of all, this concerns me for one reason only. Championship contending team, like this doesn't happen to them.
No.
In terms of like who leaked this? Like that's what I want to know. Is that and again, it's social media. People have a way of finding out, but I want to know how this got leaked.
Because it was quick too when it came out.
Because that would concern me. If Milwaukee, they're supposed to, carry ourselves like champions. Well, okay, if Bobby Portis and the team are having like a private discussion with Adrian Griffin, then that goes outside the locker room. Like, then all of a sudden there needs to be another discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I would honestly want to know who leaked this, because there's no benefit to this getting leaked, because already people are already concerned about Adrian Griffin. There's already been some questions about his coaching acumen, and now you throw this on top of the mix. I don't know how this could end well. I think it's way too early in the season to be having, like, we're 15-7. Like what Dame said the other day, we're like 15-6, and we're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah,
that's concerning. Like that quote in and of itself was concerning. We're 15-6, and we're still trying to figure it out. And we're a month into the season.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and there was a stat that someone dropped on First Take that I believe it was JJ Redick, where he was talking about the Bucks this year have run more pick and rolls for Giannis to Brook Lopez than Giannis to Dame.
Yeah, I noticed they never do. That's a cheat code having. That was the first thing people said when they got Damian Lillard was, oh, can you imagine all the pick and rolls? And it was one of those things where you can't do it every time because people are going to figure it out. But yeah, they do. I see Brook Lopez in a pick and roll all the time, but I never see Giannis and Dame do it. They try to, but it never is executed in the way where you would want it to. And I don't know, kind of a frustrating thing where you have a literal pick and roll duo that is just not used.
And he said, and Redick said on the first take, he was like, that's the first play I would use. Like, that would be my go-to play. Giannis to Dame. It's so easy. No one who's defending it.
Yeah, and then if it doesn't work, you dish it out to the corner. Malik Beasley's there. Oh, Lillard moved. You have the shooters to stay around, and then you have Giannis to go to the paint. Again, if it doesn't work, pass it out. Try it again or get a shot up.
Like, we can't win if Giannis just keeps having to keep continuously scoring 40.
Yes.
We're not winning anything. Yeah, okay, we got another vintage Giannis game. Congratulations. Whoop-de-doo. We're not winning anything.
Yeah, we still lost.
And especially if we're not playing defense, what? We're going to get a vintage Giannis game, him scoring 45 points, but we only win like 113 to 107. Like that doesn't help.
I kind of just see it as of something needs to be figured out before January. Otherwise, I'm going to start getting frustrated and kind of worried. I don't know. I feel like there shouldn't be this many situations of players getting mad at Adrian Griffin. I feel like it should be something where they're learning together. But if all the players are noticing it, nothing's changing. It's kind of worrisome just because this is your head coach and he says he's acknowledging it, but I feel like nothing has changed. In that quote or the article about Giannis and Bobby, they had mentioned something too with Giannis changing plays that he drew up that Griffin had, but it says that Griffin's like acknowledging that the players are saying this, but I just feel like there's nothing that's showing that something's been adjusted or changed.
You know what this situation reminds me of?
Last year in the playoffs?
No. This situation, and I feel like I've mentioned this before, but I'm going to reiterate my point. This is a David Blatt situation. This is exactly what happened with David Blatt. First-year coach, LeBron comes in, championship contending team, and he already lost control of the locker room. Like 2 seconds into him getting the job. Okay. Now, did Giannis mention that he was changing the plays that Adrian Griffin called?
No, I think it was just it says this isn't the first time there's been signs of potential trouble after their win over the Heat late last month. Griffin revealed that Giannis changed a play he drew up in the huddle to get Middleton involved. That was all that was said.
That's basically what LeBron did to David Blatt when he hit that game-winning shot, except LeBron drew it up for himself. So, and the point that you're making, and I remember what was said there, is that when the fourth quarter in crunch time, Griffin wanted to give the ball to Dame once again, and Giannis said, "Let's give the ball to Chris." So if your head coach, if his go-to is, just give the ball to Dame, just get out of his way, that would be concerning too. Is if he doesn't realize he's not utilizing Chris Middleton correctly, where it's like fourth quarter, everybody just get the hell out of the way and just let Dame cook. It's Dame time. Like that doesn't work for me either. Okay. Adrian Griffin doesn't know that they're probably going to be going after Dame, double teaming him, hedging him.
Yeah, it's kind of expected at this point when you have Lillard, who the ball is going to be in.
So Middleton's healthy. Like, why not give him Chris Middleton an opportunity?
Yeah.
Like, nobody's going to expect it. That's the thing is like, and also who's running this offense now? Like Adrian Griffin's a defensive coach. Is it Joe Prunty?
I like Joe Prunty. And it's one of those things where I think he's been underappreciated just with kind of the help that he's doing. But yeah, he would have to be because they don't have Terry Stotts, obviously, because he quit. Kind of made sense why he did with seeing Griffin, but
and here's the thing. And here's the thing with Joe Prunty. I kind of looked up the stats on this. During Jason Kidd's tenure, I believe Milwaukee was middle of the pack in pick and rolls. ran. So it would make sense, in fact, Milwaukee doesn't run a lot of pick and rolls now with Joe Prunty. And with Terry Stotts, they were like the Portland Trailblazers with Damian Lillard were like top 5. Mm-hmm. So it would make sense that Milwaukee doesn't run as many pick and rolls because maybe that's not going to be Joe Prunty's bread and butter.
Yeah.
Maybe his bread and butter isn't pick and rolls, which would make sense on why Milwaukee doesn't run as many pick and rolls.
Because again, you got Stotts to be the offensive guy. But yeah, that's a reasonable thing. I just feel like maybe it's something that they could push into a little bit. I feel like it has to be used somehow. I mean, and it does get used, just not with the people it should be being used for. Like Brook Lopez, with the speed that he has, sometimes the pick and rolls work. Sometimes they just do not. But yeah, when you got Lillard and Giannis, I just feel like it needs to be used more, and it's just not being appreciated with the talent that you have and the lack of moves that you can use with those two, and it's just not being used.
Yeah.
Or to the point that we wanted to.
Yep, and let me make this clear too. From Giannis' standpoint, so he was going after the organization, which would kind of be a critique of Adrian Griffin. But he also did talk about the players where, hey, we're just not executing either. Like Adrian Griffin's not missing shots. He's not turning the ball over. So, and which again, it would make sense for him to say that because he's right. You know, Adrian Griffin can only do so much. Okay. You know, is Adrian Griffin maybe right now not putting him in the best positions to succeed? Probably not. But at the same time, Milwaukee's not really helping him out either. By, turning the ball over, allowing offensive rebounds, and, not getting back in transition. Adrian Griffin has nothing to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's on the players.
Yeah, it's like a double-edged sword for them, basically. Like, I'm giving you to do this, you have to do it back, but the part that's out of his reach are the things that the Bucks are doing so consistently that are losing them games. They're taking dumb shots. They're turning the ball over. They're not getting back on defense. You could tell them you guys got to get back on defense because that's pretty realistic to do as a basketball player at any level. But if they're not doing it, you can't really do much after that.
No. So, when does Milwaukee play next? Monday?
Tonight.
Tonight?
If I'm not mistaken. No. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing. Sorry.
I was about to say, whoa.
Yeah. They play Monday. I saw Saturday, but yeah, it's not the 16th yet. Okay. Yes, they play Monday. Monday against the Bulls home, and then they got the Pacers again on Wednesday home, and the Pistons home. They got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 home games in a row.
Okay. Yeah, and I will be there for one of those six home games, I believe, against the Orlando Magic. So
I am going to be there too.
Yeah. Okay. There we go.
I think I might go on Monday, and I know I'm for sure going on the 21st. I'm pretty positive I'm going to that one.
Perfect. So, last topic of the day. Evan, I'm sure you saw this too. Is this is trade rumor season where all these trade rumors get kind of thrown out. They get thrown against the wall. A couple weeks ago, it was Alex Caruso.
Yep.
On a smaller scale, PJ Tucker, which both of us probably agree it's probably not going to happen, but you never know. This time, it was the Memphis Grizzlies quote-unquote star, Marcus Smart.
Mm-hmm.
So, my question to you, Evan, is do you think Marcus Smart would be a good fit for the Bucks?
I have always been a Marcus Smart hater because he played on the Celtics, and I hated him because he would always get the defensive love that Drew never got, and he flopped a lot. But if they're going to need someone in defensive, you're going to have to. I quickly looked up Marcus Smart, and I saw a proposed trade. First of all, this is horrible. And if the Bucks were ever to do this, I don't know if I could watch them anymore. The Bucks receive Marcus Smart. That's it. Nothing else. The Grizzlies would receive Bobby Portis, Pat Connaughton, MarJon, and a 2024 second round pick. There's no way. No way. I'm still MarJon. I'm still very hesitant on. I don't think they can give up on him early, but the way he's been playing sometimes when he gets in and how like I kind of expected him from the summer with his workouts, it hasn't been up to the standards that I was kind of hoping for. Now I wasn't expecting to be some all-star now or a 15, 20-point scorer, but he still looks like a deer who's learning how to walk. No pun intended with being on the Bucks. Didn't even think about that, but it's like transition wise, like sometimes it's not the most stable. He's very, I don't know. It's weird, but like he can't really hold onto the ball well, and he has really bad fouls. But to give up on him that early, I think is too risky. But that's actually the only trade proposal on this thing. So because the whole article is about sends Marcus Smart to Celtics Rockets. Got it. Okay, I just have to read more. But yeah, I think that one is too big of a trade, but I think it could be possible. You can't give up Bobby, Pat, MarJon, and a pick for Marcus Smart. You can't. That's way too much.
Yeah, and like there's been a lot of discourse about, should the Bucks trade Bobby Portis? Should they not? I was under the impression that, Bobby might eventually get traded because he's just one of those guys who, okay. It's like if the only thing you can positively name about a player, it's he brings energy and he loves the city of Milwaukee. Okay, but this is business. Okay?
Yeah.
And Bobby really hasn't played well in the playoffs. He's downright unplayable. So it's like, that's probably going to be a guy who's going to be traded. Now, Pat could be too, because, Pat's had the injuries and, I still feel as though he's kind of starting off the same as he did last year. Like slightly better shooting from the field, but shooting the same as he did last year from three.
Yeah, they're not playing how they did in 2021 when they won. It's kind of slowly gone hill since then.
Yeah. So, in my opinion, I would like Marcus Smart because he's gonna bring defense. He would galvanize this team. Like if Marcus Smart were to be on the Bucks, he would immediately bring leadership. He would immediately gain respect in the locker room. And he's he'd be another junkyard dog.
Yeah, I was going to say he's a dog. And I hate to say that, but
I
only hate the player if he's not on the Bucks. If he's on the Bucks, you got to support him. That was like kind of a Grayson Allen situation. You don't really like him, but if he's on your team, you kind of have to support him.
Yeah, like I love guys who could bring energy and effort 100% of the time. Like you throw, if they were to trade Bobby, you throw Marcus Smart and Jay Crowder in the mix together. Whew, those practices, man.
Yeah, and I feel like it's one of those things where the defense is not going to just magically click and they're going to start holding teams. It's not going to happen. So I feel like if you could somehow do this trade without giving up MarJon, I feel like it could be doable. I just don't want to give up on him yet. He hasn't played consistently where I could be like, yes, he is not going to mix and they should trade him. I just want to wait because Giannis likes him. He trains with Giannis. We'll wait on that. But yeah, if Bobby again they even talked about him being traded last season too. It's again a fan favorite. Everyone loves Bobby. Everyone loves Pat. But at the end of the day, they're not contributing how they have. So sometimes things have to happen, but I'm not opposed to it. Not opposed to it.
Evan, you got anything else?
Sadly, I do not. But again, we got 3 games this upcoming week: Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and Sunday. Sorry, 4 all home games: Bulls, Pacers, Pistons, Rockets. Hopefully, we can go 3-1 because we probably won't beat the Pacers again. Hopefully we can. So, all right. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast, and we'll see you guys probably next week. Yes.